What is up, everyone? Crunchy Frog here, and November is upon us again, and like clockwork, another installment of the Call of Duty franchise has dropped. This year is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Now, while I didn't take my console on a nice little vacation to New Zealand like some people, I've definitely been glued to this game ever since it dropped at midnight on November 10th. That night, I stayed up until 3:30 a.m., on the launch night, streaming, which is a shameless plug to follow my Twitch below, and playing with friends. And then later that day, we even piled in with a couple of those friends for a modern day LAN party, pizza and Monster included. And then I proceeded to play pretty much the rest of the weekend screaming at my monitor the entire time. Now, after about 13 hours with the game, a little more, a little less, I have a lot of thoughts and opinions. Some of them good, some of them bad. And today, I just wanted to put together an in-depth review that covers all of the bases. So if you're still on the fence and haven't bought the game yet, hopefully this video gives you plenty of information to either buy or possibly skip this year's game. And if you already bought it and played it, maybe you can compare your thoughts on the game with mine that I detail in this video. Now, I'll only be covering multiplayer today, as campaign and zombies might be covered in other videos on my channel at a later date. But again, today we're just going to be covering the multiplayer side of things. So as always, if you like this kind of content, make sure to thumbs up the video. It helps in extreme amount with the algorithm. And if you enjoy content like this, make sure to subscribe, as that also helps the channel and gets you clued in for future videos where I'll be covering news and updates and thought pieces on this game as the kind of year goes on here for Modern Warfare 3. And then finally, as you're listening along, make sure to leave your comments below on your thoughts on various aspects of the game and if you're enjoying the game or not. So with that all out of the way, I just wanted to give kind of an overall thing, so kind of a TLDR for you guys, so that if you don't want to watch the entire video, you get kind of a summation of what I thought of the game. And to start off, I just got to say, I am having a lot of fun. Obviously, I mentioned screaming at my monitor and stuff like this. It is frustrating, but I am still having a lot of fun. It feels like a huge improvement in many ways over Modern Warfare 2. Well, Modern Warfare 2 2022. It's all very confusing, but you know what I mean. But I will have to say, it doesn't feel like a full release. It does feel more like that expansion that, the leaks talked about, how this was just supposed to be an expansion and not a full game. It feels just like an expansion, or like a 2.0 patch that you see with some other live service games out there in the market. I do enjoy kind of this homogenized Modern Warfare universe all in one game kind of a thing, kind of a COD Online sort of idea, but with just the Modern Warfare series. I do enjoy that. Obviously there's some drawbacks and we'll talk about those as well, but I do like seeing everything kind of coming together all in one place, all in one multiplayer experience. And that possibly opens the door for maybe a Treyarch one as well, kind of a Black Ops universe type game. And I could see them carrying this forward, onwards throughout the years, where one game is just all the Modern Warfare stuff combined that maybe gets some updates or a new release. And then there's the Treyarch game that has all that stuff kind of, bundled into one. So that's something I see coming up on the horizon. But all of that being said, ultimately, there's a lot of stuff that's really holding this back from being a great game. Again, we'll get into this more later, but the very, very, very aggressive matchmaking algorithms, skill-based matchmaking and the sort, some horrible spawns and map flow issues because of it, and then ultimately some really bad connection issues, which, as you know, can ruin 1,000 different aspects of the game, just kind of have killed a lot of the fun that I might have with it. But rest assured, I still am having a great time with the game. I still think that it is a fun Call of Duty game. So with that out of the way, we'll kind of break a lot of this down, a little more in depth for you guys, so I can talk about more in detail some of these individual points for why I liked and or disliked some aspects of the game. So to start off with, I want to start off with a little positivity. We'll mention some of the pros, some of the good things of this game. Now, keep in mind, throughout all of this, I may have missed some things. There might be some little details or things that I haven't quite experienced yet. And obviously, we can cover those in other videos. But this is just to kind of sum up all of my thoughts that I've had over the last 13 or so hours of gameplay. Now, the first thing on the list here is obviously, this does feel like the proper sequel that we've been kind of asking for several years. And, we've talked about how we didn't want to reset our progress every year and things like that. We want kind of a sequel to match up and have a 2-year COD And this feels like a 2-year COD, even though they're claiming it really isn't, right? They're claiming it's a new game, but it just feels like Modern Warfare 2 Year 2. And that's great, right? Because that means you don't have to abandon last year's stuff, right? All those hours you put into camo grinding last year were worth it. If you made purchases, which shame on you for giving them extra money. I'm just kidding. But, if you made purchases, that makes it a little more worth it, right? It makes it a little more worth it to spend $20 on a skin if you know you're going to use it for several years in a row, as opposed to just ditching it once October or November rolls around. And for the first time ever, last year doesn't just feel like a waste the moment that, the 1st of November rolls around, or like a complete reset like it has in the past. We constantly complained of, oh, this won't matter in 3 months. Oh, why would I do this? It's not going to matter come November. Why would I ever buy that skin? It's not going to matter in a couple of months. That's not a problem for at least this year. We know that Treyarch might be dropping a game next year, but at least for now, there's kind of that sense of, you can breathe, right? There's another year where you can use some of this stuff or still work on the camo grind if you want to, if you never finished it like I didn't in Modern Warfare 2. And if you did complete that camo grind, you can still, strut your stuff and use that mastery camo and stuff like that for another 12 years in the brand new COD release that everyone's playing, and that feels great. And kind of with that, it feels like a very logical, more refined successor. This game feels pretty much identical in Modern Warfare 2 in many ways, so if you're used to Modern Warfare 2, you're going to feel right at home here, which is a nice touch and a lot different than a lot of years in Call of Duty. And it definitely, like I said, feels better on almost every account. Keyword almost, but most accounts, it feels just like a better version of the game we've been playing for the last 12 months. And a lot of what I liked in Modern Warfare 2 has returned, while a lot of the concerns that I've had have all been addressed to make the game, in my opinion, a lot more fun. And kind of the next little detail that, I wanted to break down is kills just feel a lot more satisfying. They refined that hit marker sound, which they seem to do every year, right? They try to tweak that to just make your brain feel a little bit better whenever you get a kill or anything like that, or you hit your shots. So that's refined. There's a little less visual recoil, which makes you feel a little more in control and feel a little better whenever you get a kill, right? You feel like you earned it a little bit more. The higher TTK, or time to kill, typically means that there's a little more skill required to kill somebody or for them to kill you, and thus results in a little less cheap deaths. Now, obviously, there's still some times when you just get wiped out of nowhere, and we'll talk about that in the cons section in regards to connection and things like that. But by and large, the kills feel more satisfying. A little longer TTK rewards you a little bit more for your skill and gun accuracy and stuff like that. So that all feels great, and that's the core loop of Call of Duty, right? So you really want that to feel good, and I'm happy to say it does. But honestly, the best it's ever felt. Overall, just kind of a general vibe, the game just feels a lot better than Modern Warfare 2 to play. Like, as you're playing, it just feels more fluid and it feels better. The movement feels more fluid, although sometimes a little too fluid, right? We have some movement demons back there, some TikTok kids just flying around the map, and sometimes I can feel bad, but most of the time I haven't run into too much issue, at least not as much as I thought I was going to. And I'm still benefiting from being able to move better throughout the maps. Everything feels a little easier, a little less clunky. And obviously, we'll talk about it more later, but the minimap, having red dots and everything, really helps improve the flow of games. There's not quite as much camping, I've noticed, as past games. Obviously, it's Call of Duty. There's always going to be campers, but maybe a little bit less than in past games. And it just makes the game just play a little better, a little more aggressive, and a little more action-oriented, if that makes sense. Next up, the old maps are great. The moment that I heard we'd be getting 16 recreated maps from Modern Warfare 2, I was just ecstatic, right? Modern Warfare 2, the one from 2009, is my favorite Call of Duty of all time, if not one of my favorite video games of all time. And just getting back in there to play on those maps, a lot of which were truly great, nostalgia glasses not included. Like, they were just objectively great maps that played really well. They were designed well. They had cool locations, stuff like that. Just being able to get back into them feels great, right? And all of them are recreated very beautifully, I must say. The graphics are awesome, with the exception of like the weird lighting shift and time time of day shift on Rundown, which is kind of my one nitpick here. Everything just looks great, and they nailed the vibe of so many of these maps. And they also added like some new doorways or like tiny little areas or changes in elevation here and there on some maps, and they're all discreet. Like, honestly, without somebody picking them out, you might not even notice them, but they all make sense, right? There's a little back door on Invasion in the one back room that kind of leads out to an alleyway. And I remember playing the game originally and thinking to myself, there should be a doorway here. There should be something here to improve the flow, improve how you move around. And they added it, right? Just little things like that. Maybe a door here, or maybe, you know, blocking up a line of sight here. Just little things like that overall do not change the maps in any huge way, but just make them a little better, right? They kind of make more sense than they did back in 2009, and I love that. And then, like I mentioned earlier, you know, obviously these games were great back then, which means they're great now, which means the game launched with great maps. A lot of the recent Call of Duties have launched with kind of subpar maps that we hated, Gustav Cannon type abomination, stuff like that. And so, you know, they kind of hit a nice meat pitch here with being able to take maps that they knew everybody already liked, that they knew played well already, and just have that be the launch offering. So that's great. To kind of go with maps, map voting is back, and that's incredible. We finally are able to engage a little bit more with our lobby members, even though that disbands. We'll talk about that later. And, you know, that just means the crappy maps are played less often, right? There's some maps that play better. I know I just talked about how great all the maps are, but let's be honest, some of them don't play as well, right? Maps like Wasteland or Derail aren't exactly fan favorites, so a lot of times, you know, the lobby kind of steers in the other direction, and that means you play the better maps a little more often. Now, it doesn't mean I've never played on Derail. That doesn't mean, you know, everyone votes the opposite way on Wasteland, so it doesn't take maps out of the pool, so to speak, but at the very least, it lessens their percentage that you play them, and I think that's objectively a better experience, and you can have your hand in deciding that, right? There's a little more player agency, and I'm all for that. The next big thing, and honestly, my neighbors, my girlfriend, anyone within earshot of me is probably thanking the Lord for this next one, and that is there is no more long shot challenges for gold camo. Now, I think some weapons do still have long shots, but I think somebody tweeted out the other day the total number of long shots that you need to get the mastery camo, so from beginning to end, is only 80. To contrast that with last year, every weapon needed 25. So that's a little under 4 weapons worth of long shots from last year. So a total of, like I said, I think 80 across the whole board. And that is incredible. I've never been so happy. As some of you may know, if you tuned into my launch night stream, I played Modern Warfare 2 beforehand, in which I'm currently grinding for long shots. That's kind of the part of Mastery Camo I'm on, getting platinum with every weapon. And I think that is the most mad I've ever been at Call of Duty, and the most bored I've been with Call of Duty, right? Long shots would have been even worse with this time to kill, right? Having 150 health, 5 or 6 or even 7 shot kills sometimes would have been a nightmare. Even on hardcore, it would have been an absolute nightmare if we had to do this with every single weapon. So I'm so glad that's not the case anymore. And to boot, a lot of these long shot challenges have been replaced with a lot more fun and less monotonous challenges. No one's gonna ruin the hardcore playlist anymore by an entire lobby just trying to hold down a line of sight all to get their long shots for platinum. And I'm sure all of the hardcore players that watch these videos will be very, very happy to hear that. You guys get your mode back. I don't personally play it outside of trying to get long shots, but I know a lot of people out there love hardcore mode, and taking these challenges out of the game, or at least minimizing them significantly, is going to make you guys' life so much better. Another improvement that I really liked here is the perk system. Now, as many of you know, I didn't quite hate last year's. I wasn't like a huge fan. It was just kind of to me. I know a lot of people hated it. So this one is a lot better. It's unique and provides a lot more interesting, I hate to say it, but almost build crafting, right? It's Call of Duty. You're not going to have an in-depth build like an MMO, but, there's a lot more interesting choices and kind of themes that you can give to your builds. Now, again, I haven't used it too much. I've been kind of mainly using the few perks of the same few perks across all my classes, just kind of railing through the game, not looking into it too much as I wait to unlock everything. But I still really have liked what I've seen and kind of looked through in the menus. And as a matter of fact, one of the cool things is like the vest. I don't know how to categorize it. I guess it is the vest. It almost reminds me of Black Ops 1, where your like first perk would almost change the entire tone of your class. And back then it changed what your character looked like and everything. Obviously now it doesn't affect what your character looks like, but it does kind of set each class as having like a theme, right? If you pick a specific vest, it comes with, a lot of pros and cons that kind of change how you build out that class and maybe what other perks you use and how you combine stuff to make, kind of a min-max sort of build, which again is weird. It's Call of Duty. It's not in depth. There's no crazy stats or anything. It's still more or less the perk system that you guys know, but I do like how they categorize some things to at least give you the chance to feel a little more into it. You get to build a little more character into each of your classes. Next up, and this is a huge one for me, there is now an in-depth stat screen. So in the middle of the match, you can press the select button on Xbox or whatever button on your console would bring up the scoreboard. And if you hit the right button twice, it brings you over to a very in-depth stat screen. So now you can check stats like your kill death ratio, right? How many times you died, mid-match, your damage taken, what weapon you're using, just different things like that. I'm not going to go into an exhaustive list here. Now, with that being said, since this is available, I kind of wish they had put the deaths back onto the scoreboard, because that's been a whole thing. Everyone was mad when they took those away because you can never tell what your KDR is. By design, they don't want you to know how often you're dying. But now they put it in this in-depth screen, so kind of weird that it's not also on the scoreboard, but whatever. I'm just happy that this screen now exists, and it provides some really interesting stuff that's super accessible. Again, it's just a few button clicks. You're not going to get yourself killed trying to check how many deaths you have or how much damage you're dealt, stuff like that. And in my opinion, this is a huge win, and I hope this carries forward in the franchise in future games. And it just kind of adds another layer of transparency, something that the Call of Duty franchise is sorely, sorely lacking nowadays. And finally, to wrap things up on the pro side, is War Mode. I had so much fun in War Mode. I played it like 1 or 2 matches. I joined halfway through and stuff like that earlier in the weekend, and I was kind of like, it's all right. But last night I played with a friend. We were kind of ticked off and fed up with the super sweaty lobbies we were in and just normal multiplayer. So him and I jumped in War Mode, and I got to tell you, I had so much fun, guys. It was so much less sweaty, and it honestly brought back a lot of the genuine enjoyment that I had in previous COD games. That kind of itch that you have to play COD. This just felt so good, and we had such a good time, and we were laughing and enjoying, having crazy wins and unfortunate losses, highly contested losses, stuff like that. It was just so fun. You guys might even see some of the gameplay here during this review of my time in War Mode, and I just want more maps to come in the future, because that's the one drawback, right? It's a little bit samey, right? It gets a little bit old just because it's one map. But man, if they can add a bunch more maps to this, maybe 3 or 4 more War Mode maps, I will just be beside myself. I could see myself playing dozens and dozens of hours in this game mode going forward, and I recommend everyone who is watching this to check it out as well. Now, obviously, guys, the pros had to end at some point. At some point, we got to start criticizing this game. You know how I roll. So, without further ado, we'll get right into some of the things I was not a huge fan of. The first thing is, this is by no means a full-price game. It should never, ever, ever have been listed for $70, let alone $60, on last-gen consoles or whatever. And that's not even mentioning like the campaign, which again, that could be a whole nother video of me breaking that down. It's just nothing has changed that couldn't have been just a big patch. Like I said before, like a year 2.0 or, something like that kind of a patch. Or just a straight up expansion, right? A $40 or $35 expansion. None of this could have not, nothing about the game isn't just a patch note. Essentially, the game feels so similar to Modern Warfare 2 that, again, it is basically just Modern Warfare 2, but with some tweaks and adjustments. Now, if you've been anywhere, you know the ongoing cliche of like, COD's the same thing every single year. But like legitimately this time it is, right? Usually I'm a defender of that and I'm saying, no, there's a huge difference between this year and this year. If you really look at it, you're just being a cliche. No, this year it is legitimately 100% the exact same game, just with a couple additions, right? You could tell back in the day the huge difference between like Black Ops 1 and Modern Warfare 3 or Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, like stuff like that. There was massive differences, and a simple patch couldn't have turned Black Ops 1 into Black Ops 2 or, Ghosts into Advanced Warfare, stuff like that. There were still very huge improvements and iterations on the game, even if it still felt like Call of Duty. But this is just straight up Modern Warfare 2, but with a patch. A great patch, like I mentioned above, but just a patch. I mean, there's not even any new maps. And again, I do love the 16 that they gave us. I've really, really enjoyed the 2009 maps, but none of them are new. I know we'll be getting new ones in the live season and whatever, but like, how are you going to put out a new game and not even give us a few new maps? I'm not utterly disappointed by this, but it is kind of, a little rock in my shoe at the end of the day. That, there's just nothing new when it comes to maps. And in the same token, there's also a lot less launch weapons. I think there's only 36 weapons needed for the Mastery camo as opposed to 51 last year. And a lot of these are just weapons that they pulled in from Modern Warfare 2019, which again, I'm happy to see those. Like I mentioned above, it's kind of creating this, Modern Warfare universe game, kind of like COD Online that just brings in a bunch of stuff from different titles. So I like seeing those Modern Warfare 2019 games or guns like the Bruin and stuff like that. But again, it's just not that many weapons and not that many new weapons. Honestly, at this point, with how many weapons are in this game, they're probably running out of ideas, if I'm to be honest. But it's just, there's not that much value there, especially for $70. And the only thing, of course, that they didn't skimp on was operators. Because, of course, that's their engine to make more money from the in-game shop. And I'm assuming a lot of the new operators that they added will have, like, crazy rapper skins, and Eminem's going to be shooting King Kong, and I'm sure Mario and Luigi are going to make their way in here at some point, or Master Chief now that Microsoft bought Activision. You know what I mean? Like, that was the only thing that seems fully featured. So they gave us like 25 new operators. Everything else was less than a $70 thing. Again, if this was a $40, expansion, $45 even, I'd be more than happy. I'd be ecstatic about the amount of stuff that we got. But for a full price $70 AAA title, this ain't it. This is essentially a 2.0 patch with, again, some additional maps and guns and stuff that I would have happily paid $40 for. Now, with that out of the way, we move on to the elephant in the room. As you guys know, the biggest video on my channel was talking about skill-based matchmaking and how it's ruining Call of Duty. And guess what? Surprise, surprise, it's ruining this one too. Now, there's been hundreds and hundreds of videos already on how the skill-based matchmaking in Modern Warfare 3 is honestly the worst that it's ever been. There's been more and more reports of like skill-based damage or skill-based aim resist and like hit registration issues that dynamically change to kind of control your gunfights. That's been reported more in this several day span than it ever has in previous games. And honestly, it's making playing with all of my friends near impossible. I've talked about it before, but I have one friend who's above me in skill level. He was close to like a 2.0 KDR player back in the golden age of COD. Then there's like me, who used to be like 1.3, 1.5. So, above average, but not anything crazy or cracked out. And then a lot of our friends are kind of newer to the franchise the last few years, and they're more so like 0.8 KDR players or right around 1 maybe. And it is just a nightmare playing with that spread of players, right? Because the game tries to pick and choose, and I'm not going to go into it. Again, I have an entire hour-long video, but just suffice to say, like, playing with friends has been awful in a lot of times, right? The lobbies are super sweaty for some of us, easy for some of the rest of us, and that kind of creates a dynamic between the two. It's caused a little bit of fighting here and there, admittedly, and I just hear a lot of stories of other people that straight up can't play with their friends anymore because skill-based has made it near impossible. Another kind of anecdote to give with this whole skill-based thing is we won a game, about 6 games in a row, 5 games in a row, I want to say, something like that. And of course, each map, it was getting sweatier and sweatier and sweatier. And finally, we got to the point where we did not win one. We kind of got stepped on a little bit. The other team was just cracked out of their minds. They probably all have TikTok accounts, to be honest. And at the end of the match, you could hear their voice comms. Every single one of them had their mics on, lit up. They were all speaking French. Now, for you guys that don't know, I live in Pennsylvania in the U.S., and the closest French-speaking area is like the French-Canadian area up there in Montreal, which is about a 12-hour, 11-hour drive, something like that. Or, and I hate to even think about this, the fact that it might have matched us with actual people in France. Now, again, I'm more so leaning towards French-Canadian, but that's still like a massive ping difference because Skillbase doesn't care about ping. It just wants to match you with people that are going to be around your level, and it tries with the new engagement optimization thing that they have going the last couple of years. It actively picks and chooses what matches it wants you to win versus lose. And in this case, it really wanted us to lose, and the only way it could do that was find people 11 hours away in presumably Montreal to fight us. And if you ever watched him, Nero Cinema, a very prominent COD YouTuber, he had the exact same story happen to him, except for his was even worse. They were matched up with people from Scotland and Ireland. Now, again, he lives relatively close to me, I think within a few hours' drive of me, and he was still getting matched with people across the Atlantic Ocean in the UK, which is just obscene. This should never be a thing. Again, I'm not going to go too in-depth on this topic because I have an entire hour-long video complaining about it, but I just had to bring up that it is the worst it has ever been in this game, and is honestly hampering my experience to an undeniable level. And I see countless videos saying the same, so I know I'm not alone here. And kind of to tail along with that, could be due to the connection, who knows, but the game feels so utterly inconsistent. Right, one match you're seemingly dropping everyone in 2 bullets. You can't possibly miss even if you tried, right? Every shot finds its home. And then the next match, you can lay 15 bullets into somebody and they're still kicking. Or, even if you're aiming directly at them, guess what? You're not getting a single hit marker, stuff like that. And like I said, just a random losses of hit registration out of nowhere. You're not crazy, you're hitting them, but you're just not getting any feedback. And again, this could be due to server issues because everyone's online, or it could be just because of the absolutely terrible connection that skill-based matchmaking tends to put you in if it thinks you're doing too well. But it just feels so inconsistent, and that makes the game really, really not fun at times because your brain tends to want a predictable outcome, right? You want that predictability, that stability, and this game just doesn't do it. It feels randomized sometimes. Sometimes it feels like I'm using a random number generator to decide if I'm going to kill somebody or if they're going to kill me. And it feels really, really bad. And sometimes even in the same match, gunfights will feel inconsistent, and that's when it stands out the most. Right, when you're using the same weapon in the same match and you say, no, I killed that guy in 4 bullets the last time. Why did it take 7 this time? Even with, same amount of headshots, stuff like that. Like, it just feels so inconsistent. There's no way to properly explain to you guys, but it's really killing the experience. And I know one of my friends, he actually rage quit and stopped playing the rest of the night because of it, just because it was just too much. You can't get a foothold. You can't play predictably and get that sense of consistency and stability in these games. And to kind of go along with that, I think the TTK, the time to kill, is a little too high. Now, I know a lot of people are going to raise their pitchforks at me because they love the super high time to kill. Don't get me wrong, Modern Warfare 2 was way too fast, but I just think they maybe overcompensated a little much with this 150 health. It's a little bit too slow for me sometimes. Now, not all the time. Some kills and deaths feel fine, but sometimes it just feels like I have to pump way too many bullets into someone to take them down. Especially for a Call of Duty game, which is more known as a Twitch shooter. I think somewhere in between the two titles would have been a nice middle ground and would have felt the best. The next part is there are some drawbacks to carry forward. Now, I talked above about all the ways that the carry forward system is great, being able to bring everything into Modern Warfare 3, but it's not all roses. Obviously, a huge part of the old COD releases was the fact that you were starting over in a new, usually in a new time frame with new weapons that you got to learn and new maps to learn and a new universe to immerse yourself in. And there's none of that now. Now, a lot of the mystery of launch week is gone. We have old maps from 2009. All of our weapons are back from Modern Warfare 2. All of our operators are back from Modern Warfare 2. All of our calling cards even, and like emblems and stuff like that. Like everything just ported over from the last game. You don't feel like you went out and bought a new Call of Duty game at GameStop at midnight or, anything like that. And I know it's kind of like a little nitpick, but like I'm immediately getting killed by lame skins like the Groot skin that everyone's been complaining about. And, Nicki Minaj killed me in I think one of my first deaths on this game was Nicki Minaj, which is just a different topic for another game. But like, I kind of used to like how the game started more seriously, took themselves more seriously at launch, and then devolved into corporate greed as they went on. But this one's just obviously straight into it because of that carry forward system. And I think that's a net negative, in my opinion. Next, obviously the carry forward, it just feels like they relied on that too heavily because they knew that they did not have enough content, like we talked about above, to justify like an actual game. So they had to bring in the old stuff because otherwise people would have taken to the streets in massive riots over the amount of content that they were, seeing fit to give us at launch. And I've also seen a bunch of people just using the same equipment or in the same weapons that they have for the past year, right? One of my first matches was just a guy running around with an Orion M4. You know what I mean? Like people were just using the same thing they've been using. Some of the more OP weapons from last year, they just continue using. There's no incentive for some of these people to use the new weapons, and so it just doesn't feel like a new game whatsoever. And then obviously at the end of the day, that hurts the file size and the balancing. Everybody knows how massive this game is on your hard drive because there's all these returning assets, right? The game is just ballooning and ballooning into this insane kind of beast. And, like I said, the balancing is a lot more difficult whenever there's 100 some guns in the game because you're combining titles than it has in the past years where it's just balance, 40 or 50 weapons on their own, in their own vacuum and environment, and you'll be good. We'll talk a little more on the gun balance later, but, it's just so rough with this carry forward business. Next up, and this is another thing that is just absolutely killing the game for me. I mentioned in the beginning of the video, but the spawns are god-awful. I know I heard a couple YouTubers say that they didn't see any problems with the spawns and that they were much better in the beta, but I'm still having a lot of issues with them. And it really hurts that map flow that we talked about with the old maps and the mini map. Like every kind of all the ground that those two items help to gain in terms of map flow, the horrible spawns just cut that in half immediately. For example, you can easily get spawn trapped in a bunch of the maps. Invasion is a huge one. I spawned on the same tile in Invasion. I physically counted 13 deaths in a row. We were kind of getting stepped on, so I did die a lot, so I apologize to all you sweats that think 13 deaths is an impossible thing to fathom. But yes, I died 13 times, and all 13 times I spawned on the exact tile in the back of Invasion. Not like a different part of the same room of Invasion. No, like the exact same corner, the exact same floor tile 13 times in a row. And that's just not okay. And to kind of piggyback off of that, some maps, it seems like they never swap spawns like that one. While other times, these spawns just drop they swap at the drop of a hat. Right, and they're just flip-flop, and you can't get a hold, and you can't maintain map flow or map superiority at all because you're just constantly flip-flopping. And it even sometimes seems to differ between match to match. Like one match, the spawns are super sticky, and they just refuse to flip even when they should, so at least it's a spawn camping. And then the next map, the moment somebody even like sniffs the air around a general square mile of the spawn, and then they swap, and it just leads to issues like that. I know another creator that I watched today even mentioned that he kind of hypothesized that it's another thing that's being tied to skill-based matchmaking, kind of giving random spawns to people as, little participation trophies to get an easy kill or to get them out of danger. I'm not going to speculate on that. Who knows if that's true? But that's another thing, another possibility that we have to think about with how kind of seemingly random the spawns can be at times here. And I just know kind of anecdotally, I have nothing to back this up, obviously, but it seems like I died from the side and from behind a lot. Like a lot. And that tends to become an issue, and a lot of them spawn from, well, the literal spawns, especially in maps that I know, like my own home. Right? Like, it's not like I'm being surprised by a brand new line of sight. Like, I know these maps, I've played these maps hundreds and hundreds of hours, and yet somehow still people get behind me because they just spawn behind me with no real reason behind it. So, again, anecdotal, but it is something that is hampering the game in my eyes a lot. Next up is the armory system is just terrible. I could probably make it a whole nother video about this, but I just wish that they had let us unlock stuff via levels like always. This feels like one of those things they needed to put in, that they changed something, they added something, even though it wasn't good. But hey, it's different, so we added it, praise us. And that's just kind of what this feels like, because there doesn't seem to be any point. Now, maybe if they had put like unique variants or other things in the armory, that would be fine, and I'd be cool with that. I think it'd be a nice little thing, and maybe they'll do that going forward. But man, like the base weapons and the base equipment and stuff like that, and weapon attachments, for God's sakes, and kill streaks should never, ever be locked behind daily challenges. Literally ever. It almost seems like a mobile game that they're just trying to get you to log in every day. Like that's the stuff I see on like the cheap little mobile games that I download on my phone. And this is in a $70 title, which again should not even be $70 in the first place. But I digress. And I do just have to give a little bit of credit where credit's due. The fact that if you complete all three, you could just keep looping wins to kind of make unlocking a lot of these a lot easier is nice. But again, because of skill-based matchmaking and sometimes putting you with super dumb teammates to balance things out, it's almost impossible to win. Like my win ratio is possibly one of the lowest it's been in years. So even when they give you, a lot more perks for winning, it's just harder to win than ever. So kind of cancels out at the end of the day. And to kind of tie in with this whole thing is the challenges are just not tracking, which, a new year of COD means more challenges that aren't tracking the way they're supposed to. It's been a problem in a lot of the CODs. I just don't understand how they haven't figured it out yet by now, but with the challenges not tracking, that especially ruins the armory system that I just mentioned, because you can't progress the armory system if your challenges aren't tracking, bar none. And especially if you can't, even if just one of your dailies won't track, that means you can't start getting that win bonus. So if you play the game for 10 hours one day, you make no progress whatsoever to those armory unlocks just because one of your challenges, didn't track. Whereas before you would get credit for that one challenge that wasn't tracking otherwise, and then all the wins that you got afterwards, possibly unlocking 3 or 4 items throughout the course of that day if you grinded hard enough. But if it doesn't track, you're just stuck there. Oh well. It also makes the otherwise enjoyable camo challenges a lot more frustrating. I had a horrible situation with a striker SMG that you have to like stun people and then kill them for I think it was one of the last challenges. And surprise, surprise, it was tracking horribly. I ended up counting, I had over 25 of those actual kills before I got the 15 that was necessary, meaning over 10 of them just didn't track. Almost doubled the amount of time it took me to get that challenge just because the camo challenges don't always track reliably. And I've seen friends, have the same issue with a lot of their guns as well. I just really wish they'd figure this out by now. Next up, again, the gun balance is not great, but mainly for one big issue, and I've seen some people touch on this, is that there's still one-shot weapons. So sniper rifles, some of the marksman rifles are still one shot, which in a 150 damage, high time to kill game is just unfathomable. Now, I know you kind of have to cater to the snipers and stuff like that. I don't know what the compromise would be otherwise, but whenever you have a gun that can kill somebody in, barely any milliseconds with one pull of the trigger versus a gun that takes 5, 6, 7 shots to kill, it's kind of overwhelmingly overpowered in certain, situations. Now, back in the day, whenever it was a super quick time to kill, a one-shot sniper rifle didn't really stand out that much, right? It could still be maybe cheap or unfair in certain circumstances, but now with this much higher time to kill, it's just amplified 100 times, and I hope they find a way to fix that. Again, usually I like to provide solutions on this. I don't know what a good compromise would be, but there has to be something, because it is rough to try to gun somebody down with 6-7 shots only for them to panic, fire their sniper rifle, and hit you in the chest and kill you in one shot. So that's just something that has kind of come up during my playthrough. Next up, obviously I'm not going to touch on it for long because you guys already know, but the UI is terrible. It's the same UI as Modern Warfare 2 with maybe some slight tweaks and improvements, but by and large, same terrible UI. I don't know why they brought it back when everybody complained before, but again, this also feeds into feeling like the exact same game as last year. Still pretty awful, still pretty convoluted. So we'll just move on from that. And last up in my kind of con category, again, there could be some that I missed, but the last one up is the level cap and prestige system. Obviously, a lot of people are asking for the old prestige system back, myself included. But one of the biggest issues is I'm already sitting at max level after 1 weekend of playing. And I haven't even been no-lifing it like some of these people that are playing 16 hours a day or, 12 hours a day or anything close to that. I know I said before that I spent a lot of the weekend playing, but keep in mind that's relative to just I still have a life outside of Call of Duty. So I haven't been playing it a scary amount. And I'm still already max level. What am I going to do until Season 1? It's kind of unfortunate, whereas before you could just keep prestige, right? You remember the race to max prestige that they used to stream every year? Stuff like that. It just keeps you playing. Now you pretty much get to 55 and that's it. You just sit there until Season 1 and then they add 100 or 150 levels after that, and you can start working through that. But yeah, it's just really weird that it launched there oh, here's 55 levels, and that's pretty much it. There's just a lot of wasted XP, a lot of wasted time that you could be leveling up and getting something to show for it. So that's really unfortunate. I'm not a fan of that. So just as a final conclusion, I appreciate you guys sticking with me. I know this has been kind of a long one, but overall the game is fun. It's just heavily dampered by skill-based matchmaking and the horrible connection, and really just feeling like a just super unreliable game, right? It doesn't feel... It feels all over the place. I hate to, put it... I don't know how to put it any better than that. It feels super inconsistent and just not reliable from game to game, and with the super strict matchmaking systems, it makes for a very frustrating experience. The bones are good, the structure of the game is great, but it's just heavily hampered by those systems. I do love that the devs listen to some community feedback, but again, a lot of that just seems like a marketing ploy, just so they can try to justify this being a new game. Oh look, we brought red dots back to the minimap, buy our game. It just seems like they had nothing else to give, so they just worked in some community feedback to hopefully win over the goodwill of the populace. But either way, that ends in a net positive because some of those changes were made and it makes the game more fun. Overall, I think if you're really into the series, I think it's a fun game. I think you'll enjoy it. I definitely encourage you to go out and get it. But otherwise, if you're just kind of casual or you're kind of on the fence, I honestly can't recommend getting it. It's not worth the price tag. Maybe, I would recommend waiting for a sale, especially after maybe Season 1 content comes out. If you can get it for, Black Friday or Christmas or, some other sale along the way, I would recommend waiting for that to happen, because the game is worth every penny of $45 or $50 even maybe, but $70 is not worth it. So I do not recommend it unless you're really into the series, at which point you've probably already bought the game, so you're probably not even still listening at this point of the review. I am excited to see what's on the horizon, what content is brought, what maps come in, what maps they bring from Modern Warfare 2 since they confirmed that's happening, what guns they add, and maybe hopefully more war maps, stuff like that. And I am excited to grind out camos and maybe try the zombie camos and stuff like that. I am excited to play this year, but man, there's a lot of stuff in this game that is very frustrating. And sadly, a lot of the stuff that is frustrating most likely will not be fixed. The devs have shown clear intent to not mention, not speak about, and definitely, least of which, definitely not change any of these things like skill-based matchmaking or, the hit registration issue, stuff like that. So unfortunately, we're stuck with a lot of this stuff that kind of sucks about this game. So that's about it, guys. Once again, this ran a little over what I thought it would, but let me know in the comments below. Like I said, what are your thoughts on the game? If you've been playing it, what do you think of the game so far? What did you like? What did you dislike? If you haven't bought the game yet, what things did I mention here that concern you, or what have I mentioned that maybe excites you, maybe influenced your want to buy the game or not? Let me know in the comments below. Get a discussion started down there. And once again, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Modern Warfare 3 content as we move throughout the brand new launch here. Another year, another Call of Duty, folks. So strap in, and hopefully it's a good one. So until the next time, guys, see you later.